after her childhood friend was found brutally murdered.
This isn't pretty.
A journalist made it her mission to uncover the truth and find the person responsible.
You can't keep changing your identity, Miles, and expect people to trust you.
Just when the investigation seems to point in one direction, and they successfully capture the man responsible, an unimaginable twist changes everything. The movie begins with a journalist, Rowena, getting into an office. After passing through surveillance, she went to Senator Stephen Sachs. She then started showing him pictures for his campaign. She then showed him pictures of him with his male lover, who used to be an intern at the office. Rowena called him a hypocrite for fighting against gay rights while being one. She then revealed she is a journalist who writes under the name David Shane, and he offered to give her whatever she wants.
Anything you want, I will give you.
Meanwhile, Miles is listening and recording the conversation. They took the recording to their editor, Neron, and he told them it will be on the first page. Later that night, they went out to celebrate their victory. As they were doing so, Neron slid on the chair in front of Rowena and told her that the intern is not willing to go forward with the story. Rowena got angry since she was working on it for 6 months. She refused the offer of vacation and told Neron she quit before storming out. Rowena went to the subway. A young woman, Grace, calls from behind, but Rowena increases her pace and keeps walking, but misses the train. Grace startled her from behind.
Rowena.
Grace, shit, you scared me. You didn't return my phone
She
call.
told her she had a good story for her. Grace told her she was dating a married guy named Harrison Hill, but after asking her to move to Philadelphia, he ghosted her. Grace gave Rowena a file and asked her to look into it. At home, Rowena started researching about Harrison. After a week, she received a call from Elizabeth, Grace's mom, telling her that Grace is missing, and now there is a police report about the body of a young woman. Rowena told her that she saw Grace last week and reassured her that she will go to identify the body, saving her a trip. Grace went to the morgue and saw the body found in the river. She was shocked to see a bruised Grace, whose body was almost unrecognizable from all the bruises. The examiner told her there were weights on her ankles to drown her body. Rowena gets sick after hearing this. We then see Elizabeth and Rowena talking to the police. The officer asked if Grace was seeing someone, and both of them told her about her boyfriend, Chuck. The officer then asked Elizabeth to sign papers. So they bid farewell and Rowena went home. When she reached her apartment, Miles was waiting for her. She asked him when he last saw Grace, and he told her it's been a while. She then confronted him about him telling Grace that she was David Shane, which he admitted. We then learned that Rowena had cut Grace off because Rowena's boyfriend cheated on her with Grace.
You know when I stopped associating with her was when she your boyfriend. I think you should ask him who told me.
Rowena then revealed that she saw Grace last week and told him about Harrison. She then showed him the emails they exchanged. Rowena concluded that Grace was dating Harrison, but he dumped her. So Grace threatened to go to his wife, so he killed her. Miles was skeptical about it, but Rowena kept adding her suspicions to it. Miles got into Grace's account and found the exchanges with the person Adex. He informed Rowena about it, and they planned to meet after work. Rowena got dressed and went downstairs, where Miles was waiting for her. He then started reading her the emails. Even though they have all the email exchanges, they can't prove that Adex is actually Harrison, so Miles comes up with an idea to hack Adex's email. Rowena then went out, saying she was late to her appointment, leaving Miles in the house. Miles then started researching about Harrison. Later, Rowena came home after her date with her ex, Cam. They immediately started getting intimate. Miles, who was in the house, saw them. The next day, Rowena called Miles to ask him how to get closer to Harrison, but he confronted her about going back to her ex, who cheated on her with Grace. Rowena brushed it off. Miles then told her about a job opening at Harrison's office. Rowena went there, disguised under the name Catherine Pogue. She then got hired as a temp there. As she was walking in, she passed by Harrison, who was getting into his office. Later, Rowena got into Harrison's office to clean his table, and she overheard a conversation conversation with a man about some business Harrison was involved in. After work, Rowena managed to get in the same elevator with Harrison and learned where he'd be that night. She followed him there, and she saw Harrison being intimate with a woman, but it was not his wife. The next day, Rowena got a call from Miles informing her Grace died from poisoning. Grace was also pregnant.
Bro, they haven't announced it yet. But Grace was pregnant.
Later that night, as Rowena was working, Harrison showed up and startled her. He then told her he would see her at the party and walked away. At the party, Rowena got information about each employee who works there from her coworker, Gina. Gina told her Bethany used to have an affair with Harrison, but it stopped when the wife started paying attention. Rowena then saw Harrison's assistant, Josie, taking Bethany to the bathroom, and she followed them there. She scolded Bethany to gather herself because she was embarrassing both Harrison and herself. The next morning, Neron came to Rowena and begged her to come back to work. Rowena refused at first, but she sent him off with a maybe later. Back at home, Miles set up an IOL account, the chat room Harrison uses for Rowena. He told her he will add Adex to her friends list. They jokingly record Rowena saying Miles is sexy on Miles's computer to get her voice sample. Rowena then told Miles about Harrison in the office and about Josie, who does everything for him. Rowena got into the chat room and started talking to people. Miles told her that he got into her account and sent a request to Harrison through her account. He accepted her request and they started talking. As she was talking to Harrison, Miles was reading her texts, which angered her. The next morning, while she was at work, she opened the chat room and received a message from Adex and another guy she was talking to. But before she could respond, her boss came and told her to sign her office papers. As she was doing so, her boss asked her about places she had tamped in before. Harrison found out that there was a mole in the office and went to the man. He punched him and threw him to the ground and told him he was fired. Later, as Rowena was talking to Harrison, he asked how she got his account, and she told him she used to work as a temp in H2A. He remembered a Veronica that used to work there, and she confirmed that it was her. He then asked of her a picture, so Rowena called Miles to get her a picture of Veronica from her security photo ID from where she worked there. Miles sent her a picture of Veronica, but as she was about to upload it, her computer froze while Veronica's picture was on the screen. At this time, Harrison walked to her and invited her to a party, which she rejected. Before Harrison turned, she managed to cut the computer's power off. Later, Miles and Rowena meet with a guy named Bill from the MES office. He told them that Grace died from belladonna, a toxic plant. After asking further questions, Rowena left to attend the party that Harrison invited her to earlier. Harrison approached and complimented her looks. Later, as Rowena is sitting alone, Harrison approaches and starts talking about drinks. She asked him about his marriage and asked why he was there with her. He joked about it, and they started talking about the incident earlier. He then told her he would arrange a car to take her home, and she went home. Miles called her to ask where she had been. He then told her about a string of murders that might be traced to Grace, but she told him they will talk about it tomorrow. She then received a message from Harrison, and they started talking again. She sent an email to Miles to tell him that she is talking to Harrison, and went back to the chat room. Then, we see Miles as the one who was writing the messages coming from Adex's account, and not Harrison. The next morning, she called Miles. He was angry Cam was there, but Rowena ignored it. He then told her Cam has a DNA test for Grace's baby. She angrily confronted Cam about it. He initially denied it, but finally admitted it. She then kicked him out of her house, and went out to see Harrison waiting for her. He joked about the day, saying it was "take your employees to work day," and she laughed. While this was happening, Harrison's wife was looking at them in a cab across the street. Later, Rowena went to meet Miles, who told her about Harrison's wife's money. He told her they invested in medical research about belladonna. Miles told her that they got every connection they need, and what's left is to get into Harrison's personal email. He couldn't hack it remotely because he couldn't get through the firewall, so he gave her spyware that she is supposed to plug into Harrison's computer. Rowena did as she was told, but Harrison apparently has an anti-spyware software installed, so it started giving her a warning. She called Miles to tell him this, and as she was doing so, Harrison walked in. He initially thought she was sent from his competitors to steal ideas, but she quickly came up with a lie, saying that she was there to leave him a note about a list of restaurants. Harrison finally believed her and asked to take her out for dinner. During dinner, as they were making out, Rowena excused herself to go to the bathroom. After she left, her phone started beeping a lot, and Harrison opened it only to see a text from Miles saying that they will get into Harrison's computer in some other way. After dinner, they got into Harrison's car. She told him she was feeling sick and asked to take her home, but Harrison was silent. He drove her to somewhere else and confronted her about her real identity. She admitted to being a spy to his competitors. The next day, she told Miles that Harrison saw the text he sent. They then agreed to meet that night to write the story and ended the call. Miles went to H2A, saying that he is from IT and was alerted by Harrison's computer. Harrison then told Josie to show him around and went to his office. Meanwhile, Rowena went to Miles' house to meet him. She then heard a recording of him saying Miles is sexy. She traced the sound to a hidden room, and when she got in, she saw the room covered with pictures of her. She also saw the chat room and saw pictures of Grace and Miles being intimate. At this time, Miles got into his house and saw Rowena looking at the pictures. Rowena angrily confronted him, and he admitted to being with Grace a couple of times. He then showed her evidence that Harrison had access to belladonna for poisoning. She took the computer and stormed out. The next day, Rowena got into the chat room and set up a date for meeting with him. But instead of Rowena, the police went there, and he was arrested. Harrison got prosecuted. After the prosecution, we see Rowena taking out a bottle of belladonna. Rowena then flashes back to a memory of her father attempting to SA her, and her mother hitting him to death with a fireplace poker. As she was doing so, Miles visits Rowena and reveals that he knows she is the real killer. He asks why she did it, and we then see a flashback of a younger Grace watching her and her mother as they bury the body. Grace has been blackmailing Rowena with this information ever since. Rowena had orchestrated the murder to stop Grace's blackmail and framed Harrison for the crime.
You led me right to him.
When Miles confronts her, asking how she plans to silence him, she fatally stabs him and rummages through the kitchen, placing the bottle of belladonna in his pocket. Afterward, she contacts the police, claiming that Miles had attacked her and could possibly be the true killer. Unbeknownst to her, a man in a nearby building had watched the entire incident unfold from his window as she waited for the authorities to arrive. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.